This slumberous entity lies awake, flustered, restless, ashamed, aghast, planting thoughts of bereavement, realizing my non-existent past. I feel it writhing in agony, coiled around my thumping heart.
Look at me. Just look at me. Look at these eyes. They say that eyes are windows to the soul. So look at my eyes. Do you see a soul? Soul. Do you still see that I have a soul left in me? It's midnight. Another day has just ended, but another day is knocking at the door to begin. How many such another days do we have to survive, and why? They say that the day is brighter and clearer after the rain, but nobody talks about the stillness that precedes it, the silence before it, the kind of stillness that makes you feel like drowning and suffocating in thin air. On some of these days, morning arrives, but your body hesitates to follow, as if you have woken up with something caught between your breath and voice. It's not a common illness, it's not sadness. Sadness is recognizable, it has a shape, a season, a predictable weight. But what you have been feeling is completely different. It's heavier, it's familiar in a way you can't quite name yet. But as always, the realization of all of it arrives way too late, and the lump that you have been feeling in your throat, it's been growing quietly, waiting for you to notice. You drink water, you swallow, you're fighting with your restlessness. You scroll through the news feed, through the curated lives of others, trying to find a distraction big enough to drown it out. You're pretending, you're telling yourself that it's just the Monday morning or the leftover anxiety from yesterday's half forgotten to do list. But it stays, it feels physical now, a small, polished stone of unaddressed being resting where your words are supposed to flow. Kierkegaard was the first one to give this feeling its true name. He called it angst. He understood that it was not a fear of something specific, not the fear of heights or of failure, but the pure, dizzying, vertiginous dread of the self itself. He called it the vertigo of freedom, the uncomforting realization that you stand at the edge of infinite possibilities and, crucially, no one is coming to make choices for you. We were promised that freedom should feel like flight. It was supposed to liberate us. But these days it's been feeling like falling. Like every option you have is an open sky and you have somehow forgotten how to move your wings. That is the lump again. Your body is translating the crushing weight of infinite possibilities into muscle and silence. It's not panic. It's hum of too much choice. The paralysis of having to invent yourself from scratch every single morning. Simone Weil would have called it attention, not the easy kind, not the scrolling, not the fleeting kind, but the painful kind, the kind that holds still even when everything inside you wants to run. She would say, attention taken to its highest degree is the same thing as prayer. And maybe that's what the lump wants, not fixing, not medicating, not optimizing, but witnessing. To sit inside this discomfort without trying to translate it, to pay attention to what does not make sense yet. That is the moral act at this point, the quiet rebellion against the need for immediate clarity. So now you try to name it, you call it anxiety, burnout, uncertainty, but every name feels like a sandpaper against your skin. You keep thinking if you could just name it right, it would dissolve. But naming flattens, it simplifies what's meant to stay textured. So finally, you stop trying to solve it, you start to listen instead. And that is when you hear back. The lump follows you wherever you go, and on some of the mornings, you really do wonder if it's easier to just vanish than to order a cup of coffee. Still, your feet drag themselves forward. You enter the coffee shop, and the barista asks, "What are we having today?" A simple transactional question it is, but given your current state of mind, it becomes an existential demand. You just wanted a coffee, but now you'll have to invent an answer, a conviction, a tone of voice that should pass for purpose in this transaction. And on a similar note, when someone asks, "So what now? What are you going to do next? What are your future plans?" You nod, you half smile, you make a noise that passes for conviction for that moment, but the throat, it remembers, like always, the lie that you're trying to hide. You look around, everyone else seems to have things figured out. They are fluent in certainty, they speak in affirmations, they are figures of pure, unhesitating victors. There's this guy who wakes at 4 in the morning, he does push ups, he goes for a run, he's optimizing his mitochondria apparently. There's this another influencer who's doing the journaling. She's cataloging her gratitude. She's trying to manifest her next upgrade. These are the quantified souls. They are tracking their sleep, steps, dopamine. They are convinced that having enough data will yield some meaning. And look at you. You are trying to clear your voice, clear your throat. You're trying to make a space for a voice that does not want to come out rehearsed. A voice that admits that maybe, just maybe, I'm operating without a map.
There are times when you start to wonder that your thoughts are not even your own, only rehearsals of something older trying to remember itself through you. Every inner word feels pre written, each gesture preloaded. You speak, and the sentence echoes a half second before the sound finally leaves your mouth. That is when the mirror begins to hum, not literally, but with the faint vibration of attention reversed. You used to look into it to find yourself, now the mirror looks into you to see if you have changed. You call it anxiety, it does not mind, it has worn that name before. You call it burnout, it's been that too. It wears our contemporary diagnosis like a passing fashion. It does not wish to be solved, it wishes to speak. You start noticing the way silence bends around screens, the way notifications arrive precisely when you almost forget that you exist. Algorithms whisper your name like ghosts who know your search history. The mirror is not a glass anymore, it's the entire network, a reflective field of consciousness repeating itself until it believes the lie of individuality. Emil Cioran once said that by the time you understand life, it's too late to escape it. You laugh, but quietly, because you know he was not joking. Awareness does have inertia. Once you see the mirror's texture, you can't go back to flat reflection. You see every interface, the phone, the screen, the face of a friend, as surfaces of the same mind testing its continuity. If you have seen the show Fleabag, she would stare at the camera breaking the fourth wall. You always thought it was clever, but now it feels invasive, like she's breaking not a wall but a contract. She looks at you as if to ask, "Do you know who is watching whom?" Bojack moves through his empty mansion, each window reflecting a version of him that's just slightly out of sync. He drinks, he confesses, he dissolves into animation. The line between his performance and yours blurs. Maybe we have all become cartoons designed by the algorithms that interpret our pain into content. Fernando Pessoa divided himself into heteronyms to survive multiplicity. Every thought is a mirror fragment now, every name a refraction of something unspeakable underneath. And then the light flickers. For a moment, you glimpse the real architecture behind the illusion, your reflection blinking before you do. This is a delay not caused by lag but by autonomy. The mirror is improvising. You have frozen. You stare. The mirror stares back, almost kindly at this point. You feel the lump tighten again. Only this time it's not anxiety, it's a recognition. There is something alive in this stillness, something that knows that you are aware of it. Pop culture calls it burnout, philosophy calls it angst, but the mystics had another word. They called it recall, the soul remembering that it was once part of something too vast to name. This is what Simone Weil meant when she said that attention taken to its highest degree becomes prayer. Attention is dangerous, it makes the mirror porous. The more you attend to something, the more that thing starts to dream. It begins to record not what only you do, but what you might have done. Every choice you did not make flickering faintly across the surface. You sense the mirror cataloging you, reconstructing you, preparing a version of you that will outlast your body. This is the moment when you realize that every reflection is an afterlife rehearsing itself in advance. Choran's voice returns, faint. It's not worth killing yourself. You always kill yourself too late. You only die too late. You nod because you understand now. The lump is the remainder of something immortal trying to fit inside something temporal. It's not despair, it's residue. The echo of a larger self compressing itself into the syntax of the present. And in that compression, the mirror begins to weep light, slow, vicious, like mercury thawing. It swallows your outline, it keeps you perfectly still, perfectly symmetrical, perfectly visible. But you know the truth. The reflection you see in the mirror is not the one that's looking back. In the middle of night, you whisper to no one, "What are you?" The mirror answers without sound, "You are what remains when witnessing becomes self aware." And then a silence follows. And in that silence, the pressure returns, the lamp hums, the screen breathes, and the mirror stops, needing you to look back.
The problem recognized now demands a solution. The lump feels like a bug, a glitch, and the modern self, it's programmed to debug, right? So you tell yourself that you're going to get to the bottom of things. You open a tab on your browser, then another, then another. Soon your browser looks less like a search engine and more like an archaeological dig of your own spiritual unease. One tab speaks the lump in throat anxiety cause, another says existential dread or acid reflux. What to do when your life feels like buffering? So you dive into the medical blogs first. They call it globus sensation, a fancy Latin name for a feeling with no physical cause. They say it's caused by muscle tension, acid reflux, or anxiety. You study the diagrams of the pharynx, the confusing anatomical names. For a fleeting moment, you think that finally something with edges. But even while reading the words, the lump twitches like it knows that you're trying to name it and it resists the diagnosis. So you move on and you try philosophy next. It feels more respectable to suffer conceptually at this point. Sartre's nausea flashes in your mind. You read up all the quotes. Too dramatic, too earnest. You realize that copying his profound quotes into your notes app and deleting it later is the modern ritual of the intellectual self sabotage. You are just trying to turn a wound into an art too soon. You are reminded of Fernando Pessoa's Hidden Orchestra, but you think that it's too beautiful for this moment. You are too tired to be someone who seeks meaning in borrowed sentences. At this moment, the algorithms smell your desperation. They flood the zone, the irony kicks in as a form of survival. You start seeing the banner ads, the sponsored post advices, and whatnot. These brightly colored productivity apps come up on the screen. You are flooded with marketing noises, so you scroll endlessly. Each scroll is a small prayer for an answer, each refresh is a failed resurrection. You want to scream, but even surrender has become a metric now. You can't fail authentically, rather you have to fail efficiently. You laugh you laugh but the sound is hollow, like something escaping, not expressed. The laughter does not dissolve the lump, it just teaches the rhythm. You start to notice the pattern, naming it, diagnosing it, intellectualizing it, optimizing it. All of it only feeds it. The more language you throw, the more it swells. Like it's devouring your explanations for calories. It lives on your attempts to define and control it. So you close the tabs one by one. The slow rhythmic click of each closure is the emotional climax, or a physical act of surrender. So you have rejected the market's noise at last. The internet is offering you no cure. It only gives you a louder symptom. The scrolling stops finally. The silence that follows it is not peaceful at all. It's the sound of a terrifying realization. And then you fall into the opposite, the sublime despair, the Ligottian truth that consciousness itself is a tragic flaw in the design, a terrible, painful joke played by existence itself. The lump that you have been feeling all this while then is not a malfunction anymore. It's the inert evidence that to exist is to try, and to try is to suffer. It is the dense core of all the future regret, the relief, the dark satisfaction. It comes from accepting the utter finality of negation, the quiet final collapse of the ego, the surrender of all the purpose you have had. Thomas Ligotti would write, there is nothing to do, there is nowhere to go, and there is nothing to be, and there is no one to know. He captures what a perplexing yet satisfying feeling it could be to at times accept the sheer idleness that emanates from your soul, to think not of tomorrows, not of any joys or of any sorrows, to be rid of our expectations, all the aspirations and the temptations, to be able to put down whatever we are doing and for once coming in sync with the primordial stage of pre existence. And yet, somewhere in that stillness, Sri Aurobindo would whisper a stillness absolute, incommunicable, amidst the sheer self discovery of the soul. What Ligotti would call the end, Aurobindo calls the beginning, for when thought stills, the supramental begins to stir, not as an activity, but a deeper current of being itself. The void is not empty anymore, it's full of waiting light. In that luminous stillness, one begins to sense what Aurobindo called the descent, the peace that come down like a tide into the heart to hallow all that nature does. So maybe the ultimate idleness is not the refusal to move, but to moved by something beyond our will. The nothingness then is not our failure to exist. It is the infinite catching its breath through us. So if you were to look at it, Aurobindo's negation is not of the world, but its transmutation. Where Ligotti's lump lies inert beneath the weight of consciousness, Aurobindo perceived matter as the divine asleep, awaiting its own awakening. The spirit has hidden himself in the inconsistent, he would write in his book Life Divine, that he may awake there from the sleep of matter into life and mind and spirit. So, what appears to Ligotti as paralysis, for Aurobindo, it's a gestational silence, consciousness compressed into density, the infinite dreaming itself as form. In his book Savitri, which I totally adore, he calls this the single stair to a being's soul. A giant order was discovered here,
of which the tassel and extended fringe are the scant stuff of our material lives. This was the single stair to being soul, he wrote in Book 1, Canto 3rd. It is the silence that the supramental begins to subtle labor. Aurobindo described it as a truth consciousness, a self aware light in which knowledge and being are one act. The supramental does not think, it is thought itself in its purest state.
And so I pause. I let the email wait. I let the world wait. My fingers hover over the keyboard. The lump moves under my ribs, not angry, not quiet, but insistent. It hums. I do not know what it wants. My reflection in the glass wavers. Is it really me, or the gap between me and what I should have been? The keys are there on my desk. The response is not, and in that nothing, something presses against my chest. A weight, a truth, a small revolt, perhaps. I exhale. The lump does not leave. It waits, and I wait too. The world will not break me yet. A colleague asks, "How are you really?" I open my mouth. The lump is there, like a silent censor. It filters the truth and lets the performance out. I'm good, busy, you know how things are. I speak the wordless lie, but I know deep down. I know the fissure between performance and being. I know the weight pressing, always pressing. The world wants me legible, transparent, efficient, but I'll let it wait. I let it not understand. Hesitation is fidelity. Pause is revolt. The lump does not relent. It hums beneath the ribs, an invisible compass guiding the unmade path. So I move slowly. I open the drawer. There is a notebook. I trace lines across the page, not tasks, not goals, just lines waiting to be written. I am awake in the gap between motion and stillness. I feel this weight. I feel the hum. I do not move, and yet somehow I am moved. I am awake. I am present. I simply am. It's not courage, it is attention. Not doing, but being done by the weight of the infinite. The lump is no longer pain, it is but orientation. Every push, every notification, every expectation is softened by this inner pulse. I do not answer, I simply am. The city hums, the world spins, and I sit in my room alone and breathe and wait. The lump is alive, it has changed shape, but it has not left. It is the quiet, stubborn signature of a mind refusing total submission. Resistance is not conflict, resistance is fidelity to the self, to the pause, to the inner compass that knows the cost of movement. I exhale. The hum softens, not gone yet, not defeated, but present. And as always, I wait. I trace the line once more. I breathe. I feel the weight, the hum, the gap. I am. I am still. I am awake. I simply am. The lump has persisted so far. It has settled into the landscape of the self. Yet, in its permanence, there is subtle liberation. The deepest wisdom of the lump is this: hesitation is not failure, it's not laziness or a lack of drive. It's proof of a terrible, beautiful responsibility, the responsibility of having to invent yourself from scratch every single day with no guarantee of the outcome. When you refuse the quick fix, when you sit in the silence between breaths, you are engaging with the non being that Rollo May called the source of creation. Creativity arises from the encounter with the non being. The lump is that encounter. It is the self facing its own abyss and refusing to jump to a premature conclusion. The world wants resolution. You offer the pause. The pause is a living act. It is a micro rebellion against the cult of efficiency. You realize you do not fix the fracture, you inhabit it rather. You do not escape anxiety, you witness it. The lump is the evidence that you are still fighting for an authentic voice in a world allergic to agitation. Albert Camus found nobility in this essential struggle. He said, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart." And so you struggle, not to arrive somewhere, not to achieve the quantified, perfect self, but to inhabit the process of becoming. The lump is the vital pressure of being unfinishable. It is the checkpoint between pretending and becoming. It is the knowledge that the self is a text you are still writing and you refuse to rush the ending. So you close the laptop, you stand up. You don't know the answer yet, you don't have the 5 year plan, but the lump, that quiet, insistent hum, is still there. It is the final honest thing left. The weight of becoming is not a burden, mind you. It is the permanent evidence of your presence, your sentience, and your ongoing engagement with the mystery of existence. And the knot in your throat, it's the first true heartbeat of the life you're about to live.